Welcome back. It's Forward Adventures, and this is another How We Do It video. And this is a little bit more of a serious topic rather than talking about kale and bedwetting.
Shut up.
So this video is titled Emergency and How We Do It. So before we got into this trip, I spent quite a lot of time and researched a lot of different methods and things about what you would do in case of an emergency. And I thought I'd put it I'll frame it up in a way of a scenario. So the scenario is just like we are now. We're cruising, doing 80 kilometers an hour on a dirt dusty road. We have zero phone signal. We're at least a couple of hours away from a town in both directions. What happens is, as you're driving along, smoke starts coming out from under the bonnet, or you start to notice smoke coming out from under the bonnet. So as soon as that starts to happen, or when you notice that, lights, engine flashlights, warning lights and things start showing up on the dash, and the car starts losing power and misbehaving. So the first thing to do, of course, would be to pull over or pull off the road in a safe manner. Then, once you've pulled off the road, smoke is really starting to billow out of the bonnet of the car. So, what we have done in this scenario, and we've talked about it, and we haven't really practiced it much, but we should, is to how we go about tackling that scenario. And this is what we do. You've stopped the car. Let's get out. Now, you as the man, because it's usually going to be the man that's driving. It may not be, so don't flame me for that. But if it is, you're going to want to do something stupid. And something stupid involves fighting the fire. Now, what I can tell you is that if your car is on fire and there is smoke billowing out from under the bonnet, the chances of you being able to put it out effectively within a short period of time is very, very slim. So what you want to do, your family is in the car, so you need to have an emergency, and as we do, you have an emergency procedure, which is what you do, and that is to get away from the car as quickly as possible. A car can burn down from, if you were traveling along the road, like there's not that much air, the air is flowing under the bonnet, but you won't see too much smoke and flame. But as soon as you stop, it could totally engulf the car within like 30 seconds. That means you need to get out and get everyone out. Now, what we do, from my side, I open up Austin's door. Here's Austin. Hi, Austin. So I get Austin out as soon as I can. Press his button, grab him, pull him out. The next thing we do, or I do, is to grab the grab bag. So our grab bag, which is this guy here, has got all of our emergency sort of supplies and needs that we have in it. And it's a simple bag. It's just basically an old like school backpack, which is a good one, like a school backpack. They're usually built really tough because kids are horrendous on these things. And that's exactly where we keep it, in the footwell of Austin. Well, that's where we keep it all the time, in Austin's footwell. It needs to be somewhere where I can be getting one of the kids out and I can just grab it. It's a grab bag, an emergency grab bag. That's what it's for. So that has all the supplies in it we need, and I'm going to go through those now. Alrighty, so what's in the grab bag? So the first thing really is the bag itself. So sort of like I was saying before, is that this is like it's like a backpack, a school kid's backpack. So that's kind of important, because the thing is that if you need to walk somewhere, or you need to sort of move around and actually carry everything together, like even if you were setting up a camp, but then you needed to go and get water, you don't want to carry water bottles in your hand. You want to carry them in something. And if you want to go off and get a bit of firewood or something, you don't want to carry one piece at a time. You want to sort of have a bag that you can sort of carry some stuff in. So having like a sturdy little backpack is a good thing. It may be if it was, I don't know, you could use like a waterproof bag or something along those lines. But I think something with the old the old backpack style thing is important. All right, now what's inside it? Whew. So, you may think that is a ludicrous amount of crap to come out of one little bag. But, so to take things back a step, where I got I suppose the inspiration from this was from a four-wheel driver and an overlander who I sort of really sort of deeply respect, which is Andrew St. Pierre White. He's been in this game for many decades, and he'd sort of made a really good video on his grab bag, and I've sort of, I suppose, elevated a little bit from that, but really sort of kept to the same sort of mantra about the sort of things that you sort of need, what you need, and what you need to be able to do. There are, I mean, whilst this seems like a lot of crap to just pull out of the car, I even forgot some of this stuff was in here because I thought about it really well about what I would take and what I should need and what I would grab. And what are the sort of things when I had a cool, calm head, what do I need? And that's when I pack the bag and that's when I set it up. If you're in an emergency situation where the car's rolled or it's on fire or it's on, you know, the precipice of falling off a cliff or something, you really don't want to have to think about what you want to grab or what you should grab. You just want to grab it and then know that you've got some supplies to sort of to see you through. So to sort of just go through everything that's here, and I will, and whilst, you know, this takes a bit of time, and I will have in the description of this video just like a list of the stuff that I have, and I kind of categorize the things, and I will categorize them, I should say, into what you need, and whether or not you choose to have every single one of these things. I think you should have some of this stuff in every category. So the first category really is communication. So if you stop and you're dead on the side of the road, you need some form or some ability to be able to communicate. And that comes in a great many number of forms. So the first one, which is pretty major in my opinion, if you're going rough and if you're going anywhere that's out and back country, is the sat phone. The sat phone, in my opinion, is like, these things are not all that what I would call reliable. They're not. It's difficult to get a signal sometimes, and it can be a bit of a pain. So I would definitely not rely on just a sat phone alone from an emergency standpoint. From the position of if you broke down and you're on the side of the road and you needed to call for help and there was no phone signal, for sure these things are great. But it shouldn't be the only thing, in my opinion, that you should carry. Okay, so I do have the sat phone, and look, if anyone's interested in the specific sat phone, I'll actually put that in the description about what it is and what sort of recharge I use for it, or what I suppose credit and stuff we use for this, because it's quite good and it's not as expensive as you think. So the sat phone is great, good to have, but most importantly in a emergency situation is to have a personal EPIRB sort of alarm, or what do they call them? It's a personal GPS equipped emergency beacon. Okay, so this little guy is the same thing as the EPIRB on your boat. So if you get into a bad situation and someone is hurt, you're stuck on the side of the road, and someone, you know, is burnt or broken a leg or been bitten by a snake or something like that, you really need to get help fast, and this is the fastest way of alerting authorities where you are. So I'll put the link in the description as well about this one. It's called AccuSat Pocket Series. It's nice and small, it's compact. If you're doing hiking or you're going somewhere that's kind of dangerous, you can just put it onto a belt loop or just put it in your backpack and move it around. So that is super, super helpful, and super, I would say, a necessity. I will always keep this in the car and always keep this in the grab bag now. So this grab bag is something that I'm going to keep forever and keep stock forever. And every time we go on a four-wheel drive trip, I don't care where it is or what it is, this bag is just going to be easily accessible to be grabbed at any point in time, because you never know. So that's really good. That's that. So those are like electronic communication methods, but there's other communication methods. So what I've got here is there's someone looking for you and you're in dense bush. There's a helicopter could fly over in dense bush and they won't see you. You know, if your car is on fire, sure, they'll see the smoke from that. But if your car has rolled and you're in a situation, there was a horrible story of two young kids that were in a four-wheel drive in Victoria, and they rolled off the road, or they had a problem and their car sort of rolled and slammed, and they both got pinned in the car, and there was no signal from them. They both perished in the car, and it took ages to find the car. So in the high country or in the bush, it can be really hard to find someone or something. So these guys here are just some old boat flares, right? So these are expired, but they still, I know they work. Like these, I've had so many boat flares over the years, and they only last like a couple of years before they expire. And there's no reason not to put them in the kit, because there's 4 of them in here. There's 2 day ones and 2 night ones. And if you've got a bag of these perfectly sealed flares, why not carry them? Because you've got smoke that you can let off during the day, and helicopters and anything from the air will see it. And you've got a really bright one through at night, where if there's someone searching, or someone even on the ground searching for you, you've got a really bright light that you can light up. So they're super good. Add a bit of extra weight, but I think they're worthwhile. The next thing is a little bit of a pocket mirror. Okay, nice to sort of see yourself, see how you're looking. I'm not dead. That's good. No, this is so you can actually redirect a beam of light. There you go. You can just sort of flash it on the lens there. So you can redirect and beam and flash a plane or something like that. So I've got the flares, but this is also also a way of doing that. So that's that. So those are my communication methods, let's call it. We do have a torch which I don't keep the batteries in, otherwise it'll run the batteries down. So that's another thing. But a torch is just handy to have. You always want to be able to have a torch on you. There is actually batteries in there, but there's a second set right there. Always want to have a torch on you. A good torch. This is an LED lens though. It's a quality torch. Don't put in some $10 Kmart piece of trash, because if you want it to work, it's the only light you've got. Yeah, you're going to really want that to work. So that's that. That's the communication gear we have. So that's the first category, really, is communication and how you go about doing that. There are other things that I can say here that fall into the communication category a bit. So what I've got here is actually some reflective tape. And just some stuff that I bought off eBay. Like this stuff was like $6. Reflective ribbon. Now where this is super good is if you had gone off a major path, or you couldn't get a signal with the satellite phone, or you couldn't your EPIRB got smashed in whatever it was, and you felt the need to go off and try and find a more major road or a major area, you can tag and leave these marks. So you can find your way back, but also with a permanent marker, you can write on them. So if you took one of these tapes and strung it across a track and wrote on it, SOS, please help, 500 meters this way, or whatever it was, if there was a vehicle coming along that and they found this, they would, I'm sure they would stop and probably try and go and find you, or call for help, or whatever it is. So also it's super helpful. Now, one thing that I don't actually have in this bag, which we should keep in the bag, is a small handheld UHF. If there is an emergency, or a plane or something coming over the top of you, or even four-wheel drives in distant valleys or whatever, being able to call on a UHF is important. So we do have a couple of handhelds. I just don't have them in this bag. They should be. So I would put a little handheld UHF. Most of them are really quite cheap these days. Even if you bought one from JCar that was a 5-watt one, or one that has decent range, just keep it in the bag. That's where it lives. Don't pull it out. Just leave it in the bag. So that's that. That's communication. The next thing is what I probably believe, and I suppose this is more where we're actually getting into survival. And survival is going to be, in relative terms, should be the first thing that you're obviously thinking about. Sure, you want to call for help, and sure, you want to get help and get someone to help you, but you need to make sure people in your party or in the vehicle are safe. So the number one thing with that is the first aid kit. So our first aid kit is the Survival brand, so Survival Emergency Solutions, really good stuff. I'll put a link into a link in the description for this because it's really, really very good. It's just well laid out. Everything has got its own little places, scissors, you know, all sorts of things that you would need. Plus there's a little book in here about books about how to do the first aid, how to do a bandage, how to do a snake bite. Like there's all sorts of stuff, and it folds down into this really good little pouch with a good pouch, and it's a good size. Now this is our car first aid kit. We have it because it's the best one that we have, and that's the one that you should be grabbing, and it always just stays in the top pocket of the grab bag. If someone cuts their finger or gets hurt or whatever, this is the one we use, and we refill it, we restock it, make sure everything's in date, and we put it back in the grab bag. That's where it lives. So that's super important. If someone's hurt, you need to be able to treat them. But I think probably what the biggest problem will be from a survival point of view is exposure, and exposure can be and I don't know statistics or any of that sort of stuff, but I think you'll find that exposure is probably one of the biggest killers of people when they're trying to survive or in a survival situation. So from a survival perspective or from a exposure perspective, this is sort of what we've got. So sunscreen, okay? So, you know, like any day or any time of the week, you need to be wearing sunscreen if you're out in the sun. If you were crossing, you know, the Simpson Desert, or you were in some desert or somewhere out there, or even just here, I'm under it, you know, there's lots of shade here, but the sun is also strong. If you had to sit in the sun for a full day, you're going to be in some serious strife. Same, we've got kids, they can't sit in the sun all the time, so definitely need to have sunscreen. The other thing is shade. Okay, so trying to come up with some version of shade. So what we've got here is a tarp. It's a little tarp, you know, not a particularly big one, but I could string that up and make some shade. So that's fantastic. Also, like if it was muddy or snow or wet or horrible or whatever, we can lay this down so we can actually sit down somewhere and not be drenched. So that's what those two things are for. Next thing is of course from an exposure perspective. So some matches and a few fire lighters. So these are 3 fire lighters. I would really hope that I would not be stuck out in a survival situation after calling for help or getting help, that I would be out for any more than 3 days. Okay, 3 days, 3 nights, 3 fires. That seems fairly reasonable to me. Matches. So handy matches, safety matches, longer, thicker, good quality redhead matches. These will last for ages. Don't put a lighter in here. You just when you want to use a lighter, you know, it'll be 2.5 years later or something. Go to use a lighter, doesn't work. Bugger. Now you've got to rub sticks together. No, need some form of fire. So that's that. I do have fire steel and that sort of stuff, but matches. Come on. Yeah, I mean, you could put a fire steel in if you were that weighing fine, but look, generally matches are okay, and of course they're in a Ziploc bag, okay? So even if I threw this and it landed in a puddle or was wet or whatever it was, or the car was in water, you know, you need to try and keep those dry. That's why that's in a Ziploc bag. Next thing is, to go along with fire, is the cold. Cold would be pretty bad. If you're in the high country, exposure to the cold and getting hypothermia is something very real. Especially like I was saying, if you were going through a water crossing and it just got deep, the car got swept away, everyone got wet, and then it got dark. Everyone's wet and cold. So what these guys are, emergency blankets. Okay, so these are just very thin little blankets that are designed to keep heat in. So you wrap them around yourselves and they radiate all of your body heat and keep it inside. So they keep you nice and warm. And look at that, they're blankets and they will keep you warm, and they're that big. Okay. Tiny, worthwhile having. So from an exposure perspective, that's pretty much it. So we've got shade, we can build fire, we've got blankets to keep us warm, and you know, if it's extremely hot, you know, that's what the shade's for. So and a bit of water. Next thing is, so I've already talked about the torch, already talked about the batteries. So the next thing is food. So with the food situation, you know, food is, you do need some, and you want some food, and what you really want to have is really high energy stuff. Oh yeah, so going back with fire. So it's a little Fisker's blade. Okay, it's a decent quality one. Fisker's. I think I got this as part of a set with a little Fisker's axe that I have. It's not a big saw, but you know, if you needed to be able to saw through something like some small logs to make a decent fire, you'll get through them really quite well with this. Folds up, doesn't, has no sharp edges or anything like that, and would be easy to put in your pocket and walk off and find some firewood and be able to make a decent fire with this. You're not going to have 6-inch logs or anything like that, but you don't need that. You're just making a fire for some warmth. So that's what that was for. So yeah, back to food. So the food situation and the food category is so basically we've got some basic groups of food or what's going to be good, and generally it's just stuff that's high in calories. Anything that's like really high in calories. So what we've got here is some nut bars, some nut roast bars. So nuts and any of those sorts of things really high in energy and protein and those sorts of things. You can nibble on these and last for like a long time. So we've got a packet of those. Hot tip with this stuff, these things do go off, right? So what you do, as soon as you put these into the bag, you put a packet of these into the bag, go into your phone, go into your calendar, find the expiry date on these, put a little reminder, grab bag fruit and nut bars or grab bag muesli bars, replace. So you just then go into them, you give them to the kids, they go sick, they eat them all, and you buy a new packet at the supermarket and you put them in. It's that simple. The same thing with this. So this is just like some, spiced ham, spam style stuff. Protein, pretty important. And, this stuff lasts for ages. Same thing. They do go off eventually. So, put them in your calendar as to when they're going off. So that's that. In terms of cooking, boiling water. So if you do have some dodgy water that's nearby, you want to be able to boil it. You want to be able to cook it. You need something to be able to put into the fire. So that's why we have this little guy. So it's a small little aluminium type pot. It's not going to be real good on really hot burning fire, but drag some coals away and be able to boil up the water on that, it would be fine. The other thing too is that we can easily nest it. So inside here we've got a bit more food, so a can of tuna and also another container, another metal container that we can use for something. So pull the lid off, eat the tuna, good metal container. So that's that. More nut bars, squeeze in around the side of it. So you can have a lid if you need to cook anything, drain it off, any of that sort of stuff. You'll survive, with this just sort of fine. You can't boil up 10 litres at once, but you'll be able to boil up water enough to be able to survive. So that's that. The next thing really as well in terms of food is good old snakes. Woo! Who doesn't love snakes? Snakes are amazing. But yeah, look, the other thing too, pack some fun food. If you've got kids with you, having a snake, giving them a reward for a couple of snakes every hour or two or whatever, they really need to be, sort of keep the spirits high and that sort of stuff. And what raises spirits like good old snake. So that's that. So while we're on that, so we also have a deck of playing cards. So, if you're in a survival situation, you're basically just going to be sitting around surviving, making sure that help is on the way. Someone might have gone off to get firewood, to do something. Who knows how long it's going to take to get rescued. Pack a little game. These are just a standard deck of playing cards. Melbourne victory. Go the boys in blue. What else have we got here? So a little bit of hand sanitizer. So when you're out here, you'll notice we don't have any toilet paper, okay? Look, how much you need toilet paper? Yeah, maybe. It's probably good, like maybe a small packet of wipes or something to go in here would be good. But you need to sort of try and keep yourself, at least a little bit clean and disinfected. So, your hands and that sort of stuff. So a little bit of hand sanitizer. What else? Compass. Yeah, look, so I got a compass in here really just sort of to give us a reasonable idea. If you were talking with someone on the UHF or the sat phone and you wanted to know which, they were telling you they were coming in from the north and you've given them your position because the sat phone tells you your position. You've given them your GPS coordinates and they're coming in from the south. You'd want to be able to find where that is, go to a high point, take a flare, wave it around. It's good to know your direction. If you know and where you've been stuck, that there is definitely a town or a major road in a particular direction and you want to follow that, sure, be my guest. I probably wouldn't. Better stay with your vehicle. Okay, stay with your vehicle, signal for help, and help will come. If it doesn't come, it's the end of the world. Second last, cable ties. These things are infinitely useful for all sorts of stuff. You just have some. Put some cable ties in. So lastly, but definitely not least, is water. So water is going to be really, your absolute lifeblood. So having all this food and all this sort of shade and shelter and all that sort of stuff is important. But water is the number one, and you really need the water. And if you're intending to survive, you're really not going to last any more than a day if you don't, have some water. And you'll start to get crazy and a little bit flipped out as soon as you start to become really dehydrated. So keeping out of the sun, really important. The more you're in the sun, the more you're going to sweat. The hotter you are, the more you're going to sweat and the more you're going to be dehydrated. Eating some of this food, it's got moisture in it. There's moisture in here, there's moisture in here, that's all good. But generally you need to be able to collect water. So what I've got here is all about water collection. So the little pot that I showed you before, perfect for boiling up some water. So if you've got some bad water nearby, you can boil up some water, which is great. But that might not be enough. You might need more water. If the water is like out of a river and you're just not too sure, you can fill up another bottle and use a water purification tablet to sort of make it nicer. Or make it safe to drink, I should say. Not nicer, it's going to taste like a pool water, but it'll be safe and you won't get sick. The thing is, if you do drink bad water and you get sick, you will become more dehydrated. That's what you don't want that. Now, whilst these are only 1.2, 1.5 litres of water here, there's only 3 litres of water between the 4 of us, which is nowhere near enough. It should be enough to last for like a day. We should be able to stretch this out and last a day. But then on that day, we would need to be desperately looking for more water. So one way that we can do that is through these guys. So what these are a big, heavy-duty plastic bag. And I've got quite a few of them. And what you can do is that if there's any small bushes or shrubs around or any of that sort of greenery, you can wrap these over the top of them. And the bushes will have a good amount of moisture in them. Come back a little while later whilst they've been in the sun and you'll find that there'll be water in the bottom of these bags. So that's what they're for. Also, nice big plastic bags are great for all sorts of stuff. Lifting, carrying things, putting stuff in, if you need to grab some clothes or anything out of the car or put some more stuff in it, like having a big gap bag's kind of good, and they're fairly compact. So that's what's in the bag. I forgot something. And this is something that you should keep in the bag, but something that I always have on my hip, and there is generally never a time that I don't have it with me. It's my Leatherman. So this is my knife. This is what I can use to, cut, open anything, open the tins, do any of those sorts of things. It's a multi-tool, and it has all of the little bits and pieces in it that I need. So I don't keep this in the emergency bag because it is literally always on my hip. So as soon as I hop out of the car, it's going to be with me. But should have in the bag some form of knife, something to cut, something to peel, scrape, do any of those sorts of things. Keep one of those in your grab bag too. If, of course, that depends on the severity of the fire, but one way or the other, the very first thing that you need to do is get people out of the car. Get them out of the car and away from the car. So as soon as I fling out and hop out, I get around to Austin's side and I pull him out and pull the grab bag out. On Matessa's side, she'll jump out.
The car's on fire.
Yeah, it's very good acting. So what Matessa will do is that she will reach on down and grab this guy. Go on, you can grab it. So what this is, it's a firefighting device. So it's essentially a fire extinguisher, but it's nice and light, it's tiny, and it allows you to fight a fire if you need to. Now, thing is, we're not planning on fighting a fire here, but she's still going to grab this anyway, and then she will swing around and get old mate Royce out and make sure he's out and out safe.
Pew!
So once everyone is actually away from the car and moved away to a safe distance, knowing that, you know, wind, go upwind, you know, the smoke's going to blow downwind, it's going to be horrible, acrid, terrible smoke, just get away from it. Now, if, for example, it was a small fire, or it was in a wheel, or it was just a bit of, you know, brush or something had caught fire underneath the car, because that can happen traveling down a dirt track and you collect spin effects or any of those sorts of things under the car, you know, it can start a fire on the exhaust, and you can fight those fires. But you still need to get everyone away from the car first, very quickly. So as soon as you do that, what I would do is I would run and move Austin away from the car. Matess would be moving Royce away from the car. I'd grab the fire extinguisher off her and start to try and put it out if I can. If flames or smoke are coming out from the bonnet, I'm not going to open the bonnet. It's just going to be on fire in there. One way or the other, the car is going to be cooked if there's a big fire under the bonnet, literally. There's nothing we can do about that. But we have our grab bag. We have all the things that we need. We can survive, and we can call for help and get help as soon as we can. So that's what we do. That's how we do it at Forward Adventures. Now, in terms of fire extinguishers, I do have more. I've got another one in the back of the car. I've got another one. I've got one in the van next to the door as we enter. I've got one in the garage drawer, and we've got a fire blanket. So we've got lots of firefighting stuff, but the intention is to not really use those things much, or we shouldn't use them if we don't need to. But you know, if in the case that there is a fire, we need to act on it really quickly. Otherwise, it can just engulf and everything is gone. But it's insured, so be insured. It's also important. It's not worth your life. Anyway, that's how we do it at Forward Adventures. Take care.